This video is sponsored by our friends over at Art of the Trek. So one thing I have to apologize for, I haven't done a very good job of in this entire couple years on YouTube is outlining what I think is a good beginner's loadout. And now I've talked about different pieces of gear here and there. I've touched on budget backpacking gear, value gear, dream gear. I've talked about lots of different types of gear, but I've never put it together in a cohesive collection. And so if you check right away in the description, there is a lighterpack link that will show you weights of everything. I try to also include links in the description if you want to go ahead and purchase specific items in this backpacking gear loadout that I would recommend. But I wanted to put it all together so you kind of see if someone is a beginner and they want to get started, that's the place I would start. And so it took me a while to kind of gather all those weights and look at different manufacturer sites. But hopefully it's helpful to those of you guys who are interested in seeing what I'd recommend for an overall loadout if I had to choose every piece of gear and talk about every piece of gear. So this video I'll be outlining what I chose, going through that lighterpack link, as well as what considerations I made when I was putting this list together. How this whole thing started is I had a couple beginning backpackers and people who were interested in going bike packing with me, and they were asking me for a list of things that they needed. And I realized I could send them my list, but my list has taken a while, and I've kind of dialed things in, and it's honed really well to where it fits what I need. But someone who is just beginning, not sure if they would really like backpacking or bike packing, which by the way, I've only done one time, but there's so much overlap that they weren't sure if they would like it or not. And so I wanted to come up with an overall list that someone could go to and use as a resource. So let's go right into it. The first consideration for me was the backpack. And there are a couple of ways I could go with this, but right now there's a super value on the REI Flash 45. And so the price of that right now is under $100. There's not a review of the REI Flash 45 on the channel, but I use it consistently as a training pack. And I've been very impressed with it for the cost. You get a lot of bang for your buck with this backpack. And so the REI Flash 45 is a good one that will not bust your budget, but has a lot of great features out there. In terms of sleep system, and you'll realize as I go through this list that I really considered value pieces. Now there are a few pieces that you could consider budget for sure, but there are other pieces that I tried to balance what I consider to be budget and the value overall of an item. So something that I feel like even though for some people it may be a beginner item, for others it can be an item that they would use for years and years and get a lot of use out of. Next is my sleep system. I recommend the Mass Drop Pine Down Blanket. I've mentioned this a couple of times last year, and it's just a phenomenal piece of gear. For $100, you can get a blanket / quilt from Mass Drop, and I personally feel comfortable saying that you could take it just below freezing with the proper, let's say, I was wearing Under Armour 2.0 leggings, long sleeve, very lightweight shirt and socks, and below freezing, comfortable, about 30 degrees. I also would recommend the Climate Static V. Now the version of the Static V is up to you. A lot of people I know will just do fine most of the time, especially beginners are typically going out in the summertime, dead of summer. The uninsulated version should be okay, but if you're a cold sleeper, you may realize that you do need an insulated pad. As for shelter system, I kind of made this pretty easy for you guys. I have a hammock overall setup idea, and I also have just a single tent idea as well. For the tent, I went for the Tarp Tent Pro Trail. I think it is just a phenomenal value. Once again, you'll hear that throughout this entire video because it really is, in terms of overall weight and overall durability, I think it's really hard to beat. Karate Josh actually has one, which is why it's making its way on this recommendation list. And Tarp Tent in general is a fantastic company. Tent stakes, you can get away with, I think, cheap Amazon titanium shepherd's hooks. I know a lot of people don't like shepherd's hooks, but I really haven't had an issue with it at all. In terms of a hammock setup, I'll go through this pretty quickly so those of you guys who are ground dwellers won't have to grin and bear this part. I'd recommend the Dream Hammock Freebird as well as to try to get a cheaper bug net option rather than the integrated one, the Dutchwear Summer Sock. And Dutchwear is where I'd say when I'm looking at things like tarp suspension, I would recommend the Dutchwear Stingers as well as their tree straps. Tree straps are kind of a dime a dozen. It's just if you get kind of a one-stop shop for your hammock stuff, you might as well. As far as the tarp goes, I think it's really hard to beat UGQ's penny pincher tarp, not Karate Josh, Subaru Josh. See, I get mixed them up. Subaru Josh actually has one of these, and I just think the value is really hard to beat. It's the 11-foot wide body penny pincher tarp. I think it's $79. Extra clothing, REI right now has a sale on their co-op jackets, $650 filled down. It's under $100 if you go right now and get that. And I think it's really good value. I've seen a lot of people use these, and it's a little heavier than, let's say, a Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisperer, but at 10.5 ounces, it's no slouch at all, and it performs well. Only downside for this specific jacket that I've seen is no hood. In terms of rain protection, Frog Togs is the way I'd go for someone who's just beginning. They actually have an ultralight rain suit right now, so pants and jacket. So if you want someone who's just getting into it, trying to figure out something cheaply, doesn't want to spend $100 on a rain jacket or a Cuban fiber quilt, I think the Frog Togs is a great way to go. Just warn them, they have to be careful in it. It's not going to do really well with super bushwhacking. So now we get to the part of the list where I actually will not make a lot of super specific item recommendations, and that relates to clothing. For a lot of beginners, what I recommend is that you stick with what you have. Look through your closet for something that's synthetic, something that wicks moisture away really well. I've talked about backpacking clothes before in lots of videos, but I'll link it here in the cards. But just go through with your own stuff. Look for things that are synthetic or wool and weigh them. That's really what I do. So I list a lot of things in this list that I have. Specific hats, you don't have to use that specific brand of hat. You don't have to wear that specific brand of shirt. There are lots of great options out there for beginners, but the key is to weigh your stuff, because you'll be surprised when you go through this list and when you start weighing your clothing at how heavy your clothes are. And so when it comes to specific clothes I mentioned in this list, try to use your own stuff. It's easy, it's free, you already have it. And I still recommend the Human Gear Duo, fantastic product, and it's really cheap. I think about $7. And when you think about Cook Kit, if you're only boiling water and hydrating, there are lots of great cook kits on Amazon that you can get for $10 to $12. I will recommend for canister stoves the BRS stove from Amazon. It's about $15 right now as we speak. Or if you want to try something that's a little more DIY, you can make your own super cat stove. It's really easy. All you need is a hole punch and a potted meat or a cat food can. Navigation, you should have a map of the specific area that you're going to anyway. The headlamp right now for a relatively cheap option, it's about $26. There are lots of headlamps out there. You can, of course, go and buy yourself a cheap headlamp from Walmart, but one that I think is a really good value is the Black Diamond Spotlight 160. I've been testing it, and I feel pretty confident that is a very good headlamp, very lightweight, and it will work for the majority of people out there. For water purification, I would suggest buying the Sawyer Squeeze kit. The Sawyer Squeeze, specifically because of the flow rate, I think people could get really frustrated if they had to choose the mini. And just for the squeeze, I think you'll get a lot of years of use out of it, which is why I'm recommending it for beginners over the micro, let's say. As well as you can use the bags that come in the kit for the Sawyer Squeeze. I think for someone just starting and doesn't want to spend a lot of money, it's nice that it comes with the filter. As far as overall extras, if you're thinking about stuff sacks, use the Outdoor Products stuff sacks. There's a link in the description, or you can get that from Walmart. It's a pretty kind of really recognizable stuff sack configuration, because it comes in like yellow is the larger version, and then I think blue is the medium sized, and then red is the smallest. So it's 3 stuff sacks in one for $10, and you will get lots of years of use out of that. You should also bring a pack liner for your pack. Just use a trash compactor bag or a heavy duty white trash bag. Why a white trash bag? The reason is because it makes it easier to see in. If you get a black trash bag, even though it will work, it just makes it more difficult to find stuff in your pack when you're digging around in there. Also bring a gallon-sized Ziploc bag to put trash in. It's just something that comes in handy. I continue to recommend as an extra the Thermarest Z-Seat. Makes it for a nice place to sit down, and as well as covering up cold spots in your insulation. Trekking poles, the Cascade Mountain Tech poles work really well. I would choose the aluminum version if you're looking to save money and looking for something with good value. That is one I would consider. But honestly, anything that you choose in terms of a trekking pole will work. It just is a pole that's made of aluminum or carbon fiber, and it's just to help you walk. Linked in the description are things like your head net. You just use a really cheap option. I think I can count on maybe one hand the times I've actually used my head net over the years of backpacking. But those times that I did use it, it was really, really necessary. Med kit, I've talked about what's in my medical kit before, medical and repair kit. Try to make sure you have things, of course, like medication you will need. I'll link this video in the cards going over my first aid kit, I guess is a better way to put it rather than med kit. But also repair kit for my sleeping pad in case something happens, or things like duct tape is a really easy part of that med kit. In terms of a knife, I carry a small pocket knife, but for beginners, a Mora companion knife is great. It's lightweight. I've owned a couple of these and they're almost impossible to break. They're not full tang knives, but it works really well. I also carry a cheap gear sling. It just makes it nice when you're hanging your pack up. All it is a carabiner and a length of Dyneema cord, and you loop it through the cord and clip it to your backpack, and it hangs from the tree. I know you've all been waiting. You watched the entire video to this point and you thought to yourself, when is he going to get his trowel recommendation for a beginner? And I would recommend the Deuce of Spades #2 trowel. It is very lightweight, 0.6 ounces, and it is perfect for what you need it to do. And so that's what I would use. So going with the rest of the toiletries, so things like sunscreen and hand sanitizer, you probably have toothpaste, your toothbrush, those kind of things. Of course, you can cut down the handle of the toothbrush if you want to save a little bit more weight. But those things you can kind of pick up from home. Toilet paper, wipes to save more weight. You can dry your wipes before going out to the backcountry. Those things you can get from your home. Something that you may not have at home are travel size packets of sunscreen and bug lotion. I talked about this in my favorite backpacking gear of 2018, where the Picardin lotion is one of my favorites from Sawyer, and I will not go on another trip without it. Keeping ticks away, keeping bugs away, it just does a phenomenal job. And travel size packs, I just bring 1 or 2 for each day. I kind of allot. It just saves me a lot of weight by not having to carry a full bottle worth of stuff. Floss, of course, and the one thing I include in toiletries is just a small pack towel. Now this is very versatile for me. I use it for cleaning off condensation off of tents or the hammock tarp, anything like that. But also honestly cleaning my body if I need to. If there's a body of water and I can jump in it and scrub myself off with a pack towel, I definitely will take that opportunity to do that. So what does this all come to? 12.38 pounds. I thought it was pretty good. Of course, a base weight under 15 pounds, so 12.38 pounds, is considered to be lightweight. It's not in the ultralight categories yet, but I thought this was a pretty fun exercise to do. Now, some things to consider is that I used, for a lot of these, reported weights of what the manufacturer states that the weight is, and that's not always accurate. Sometimes it can be a little lower, sometimes it can be a little higher. I try to overestimate by a few ounces every time I had a reported manufacturer weight, depending on what the item is, or I round it up, just because I wanted to have a more realistic idea of what something would weigh. And I'm sure that a lot of you can do better on specific items. Of course, I'm always willing to hear. I'm open to hearing exactly what you guys have to say. Now, I've been working with Art in the Trek recently, and one thing that their biggest goal for their overall company, their ethos is they want to make sure that they get beginners and other backpackers out into the woods as much as possible. And so they want to know if you could share down in the comments below. Let us know, what is your biggest barrier or hurdle to getting out and having a night, 2, maybe more in the woods? What would you say that is? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.